bakit hindi binibigyan ng pansin at natutuwa kami sa ating kagalang-galang na chair doon sa immediate na action which was moved by our our unionist congressman Raymond Mendoza, no, who asked that the committee write the IATF to at least even temporarily suspend until the implementation of the same, until such time that we have a deeper understanding of the implications of the resolution. So, Mr. Chair, I hope, no, doon sa susunod natin patawag na hearing, talagang i-ano na natin, i-require na yung pag-attendance nila dahil we have to resolve this at the soonest possible time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before we proceed, let me welcome two other members of this committee, the Honorable Ruth Mariano Hernandez of the 2nd District of Laguna, and the Honorable Sege D. Padiernos of Party List GP. I would like to
Mr. Chair,
ask the opinion of our members right now if we should continue or we should just defer this meeting, because it is pointless for us to proceed because none of the prominent members of this body are present, only the representatives. So,
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair Mendoza.
it's always been like this, Mr. Chair. I also, the chair of the HCO, the House Committee on Overseas Welfare Affairs. I totally agree with Congressman Gaite. I do not know, in deference to Yusek Sherade Grande, she's here to certify said resolution. Are you, Ms. Grande, are you ready to present the resolution and then to expound on it? We were hoping that at least PowerPoint presentations will be made. Yusek Grande, with kind indulgence, Mr. Chair. Yusek Grande.
Yes, Mr. Chair, as to the existence of these resolutions, Mr. Chair, we confirm that I can
Exactly,
certify.
but we were under the impression that the IATF, together with their heads of the IATF, but we sent the head of the secretariat. Kami naman dito, hindi naman kami nagpadala ng mga COS dito. Mga congressman nandito. Ma'am, so please relay that to your chairman. I really don't know what's with it na smiling si Congressman Gaite. And you would agree with me, Kong Gaite, it was very difficult to get the heads of IATF. That's why I caveat, Mr. Chair, the last December 1 hearing, I told you that it is very difficult to get the heads of this interagency, and they don't have time to at least the respect to come in and to be in this room and explain to us the whole two resolutions, 143 and 149. So I am ready, Mr. Chair. I was thinking that my PowerPoint presentation, and then we will talk about it, and of course try to enhance their resolution, considering we know for a fact na wala namang consult yan sa mga stakeholders. So I hope and I pray that's the appeal from TUCP and of course probably the committee na bigyan ng pansin talaga na yung head of IATF should be here, or the very least send someone in deference to your charade. Hindi naman charade ipadala dito na head lang sa secretariat. Dapat naman na yung may authority and not to certify. Why do we need to certify? We don't need a certification or to certify the existence of the resolution. We need an explanation of the resolution and the raison d'etre, which is the reason to be. And why it's so na you came out with the resolution na no job, no work policy, that's it. Hindi itong certification. We need an expert to tell us in order to increase our intelligence on the resolutions, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I hope next time, if ever there's a next time, na may padala din in other committees, may mga magaling naman sa DOH that can really expound on this resolution, how they came about. So, interagency, at this point, I don't know how are we going to proceed with this, Mr. Chair. In deference to you, Secretariat, USEC, Mr. Ray. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, the Honorable Franz Castro is recognized.
Sige po, medyo masasayang oras natin kasi gusto na natin tong mabilisin kasi ito yung very urgent issue ito ng ating mga manggagawa. So, tanong lang natin kay Yusek Charade, no? So, nabasa man lang ba ito ng IATF, yung sulat ng Committee ng Labor and Employment? At ano yung mga naging reaction kaugnay nito? At ano bang balak dito? Kung alam niyo po, Yusek Charade.
Yes,
Chair.
Madam Chair. We confirm, Mr. Chair, that the chairperson was able to read this invitation, and thus we were asked to attend, Mr. Chair, so that we can confirm or we can certify if there is a necessity, matters that were taken up.
Yusek, ang tanong ko po, yung letter ng committee asking or requesting to suspend itong IATF resolution. Nabasa po ba ito?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Ay, ang chairman po si Chairperson Pineda. So nabasa po ito ng ng ating ng chairman ng IATF.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We confirm.
Okay, so anong naging
Castro, may action ba? May action
ano
ba?
action? Ano yung action? Nagtawag man lang ng meeting or nag-ano man lang ba ng reaction, whatever. Yusek.
Yes, Mr. Chair. That is the reason why this resolution is currently under review, and we also have member representatives from the IATF that are also present in today's hearing, Mr. Chair.
So hanggang kailan yung review po? Yusek, Mr. Chair.
We have regular meetings, Mr. Chair. We have every Wednesday and Thursday meetings, Mr. Chair.
So Wednesday, tomorrow, Mr. Chair, parang wala tayong pasok na. So Wednesday and Thursday. So naka-agenda ba ito sa Wednesday and Thursday meeting nyo? Yung kahilingan ng committee?
It is currently under review, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
Castro.
Sige, Rep. Raymond.
You're right on the questioning. Pending review, di ba, Kong Castro, what is the status of the resolution? Is it defer, suspended, or is implemented? Nakamute ka, Kong Castro.
Please reply to the queries of the Vice Chairman.
The IATF resolution, Mr. Chair, is currently in effect po, Mr. Chair.
What I would like to know is why until today, the committee has not received any letter from the IATF regarding our letter which was sent last Wednesday. Ganun bang katagal bago nyo masagot yung aming sulat?
December 7.
So we had a meeting last December 1. It's already December 7. We sent the letter last December 1, and it's been more than 6 days, and we have not received any reply from the IATF. Ano ba ibig sabihin nun, Undersecretary, para bang hindi ba kami importante sa mga amo ninyo dyan sa IATF at hindi mo kami binibigyan ng pansin?
We would like to inform, Mr. Chair, that all matters referred to the IATF are treated important, Mr. Chair.
Yusek, we requested that the resolution should be suspended pending further discussion. Pero wala man silang sinabi na, okay, we agree, we will suspend. Wala man lang sagot sa amin, niha-niho eh. Di sana tumawag man lang sila o nagparamdam man lang sila. But the way we feel it, especially my committee members here, para kami napapahiya dito eh. Parang hindi kami binibigyan ng importansya ng mga amo ninyo.
Mr. Chair, the matter is already under the review and discussion po, Mr. Chair, and that, as I mentioned earlier, there will be an
It's
IATF
not
meeting.
you, but nobody has even sent any communication to the committee to that effect. We were not even informed that it was received, being discussed. Ano pong gagawin natin dito? Kasi we don't want na umabot sa punto that the committee will now subpoena the members of the IATF just to compel them to attend this committee hearing. Hindi naman kami nagbibiro dito sa committee hearing namin. Ang involved dito yung karapatan at kabuhayan ng mga manggagawa. Bigyan niyo naman ng importansya. Any members would like to comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, as of now, it's still implemented and it's still under review. Even December 1 na, and then your committee asked it. And then they sent us a person, a USEC here, who is authorized to certify, but not to discuss on its merits. So what do we do?
That's why I'm asking the opinion of the members if we should just defer this meeting because nothing can be discussed here constructively because none of the decision makers are present. Not like us, we are all present. We are not appointed. Mind you, we are elected. And we are responsible for our constituents. That's why this is very important to all the members of this committee. That's why we are now in a quandary of what we should do. Proceed or just defer this committee hearing. That's why I'm requesting our members for their own comments.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Kong Ferdy po, Garte.
yeah, don't recognize.
Thank you, Chair. Yun nga, no, tama po yung observation na ating kagana-gana na Chair. Yung pagpapahalaga sana sa committee ito ay bigyan ng kaukulang at urgency ng IATF dahil nga yung policy na pinatutupad nyo ay in effect as you have said by the USEC charade, no. So we spent time and ano pa tayo, may plenary pa, but some of our, not only our colleagues but also resource persons attended, no, purposely to get clarified on the concern. At sayang naman yung oras. At least sana po, siguro na lang, kung suggestion ko, if we, before we suspend, to allow some of our other resource persons who were unable to contribute in the discussion to be allowed to present today. Pero sana po sa susunod na hearing nga, i-require na talaga yung IATF, no? Kasi nakita ko po na may ibang mga representatives from Pilasang Mayo Uno, I believe chairman of the chairman Elmer Labog is also in the room. Representatives from Bataan, no? I think they are Mr. Chair, pardon the problem because ayaw nilang anong tawag doon. They would like to have some ay wala na ata rito. Wala na nga. Pero yung ibang employees natatakot ng retaliation, they complain. So, merong gusto nilang medyo matago ng konti yung kanilang pangalan. So, yung organization nila ang pinipresent nila. I think the organization originally was here pero parang nawala, baka masama yung signal. Anyway, gusto rin sana nila contribute sa discussion. Taga-Bataan po sila. But so, and I think the CDC, I think in the chat box, would also like to present some more information. So sana po, bigyan na ng pagkakataon because they already allocated some time for this important meeting. Unlike the IATF, which I don't think considers this the importance or urgency of this meeting. So sana bigyan na rin natin sila ng pagkakataon mag-contribute pa sa discussion. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Gaite. Comsec.
May we call on Mr. Elmer Labog of KMU?
Comsec, before you call on Mr. Elmer Labug, I think the representatives of the concerned have been raising their hands in part of the meeting. Any member from the CDC who would like to speak?
Matawagan muna yung committee members.
And
I think
anyone
Dr.
from-
Iggy Agbayani, sir, Mr. Chairman, I think Dr. Iggy Agbayani will have a presentation on behalf of CDCPH.
How long is the presentation?
Around 10 to 15 minutes po. Mabilis lang.
We shorted it, Dr. Iggy.
Sure. Sure.
Let's start on the main issue here. Basta ang issue lang po natin is the no vaccine, no work that is being implemented right now by the IAT. You have the floor now, Dr. Iggy.
Apo, how may I share? Pwede po ba mag-share ng slides?
Comsec,
Yan na po.
fairness line.
Yes. Yes po.
Yeah,
Ayan.
okay. You may proceed.
Yes, sir. Okay po. My name is Dr. Iggy Agbayani. I'm the past president of the Concerned Doctors and Citizens of the Philippines. We generally provide an independent scientific view of the COVID-19 situation. So we would think that we would be a good alternative view as to how they interpret the science. Kasi I think a very important aspect of this coercive vaccination is about the science. So basically what we want to say is that we are not for
Di mo na ang menu yun, ano?
we're not sorry. We're not for mandatory COVID vaccination, and but we are not against vaccination that is safe and effective. People tend to call us anti-vaxxers, but in fact we are not. I myself have been vaccinated before for other vaccines, but it does not necessarily mean I'm against all vaccines if I'm against this vaccine. So the burden of proof, of course, is upon them to show the safety if they want to make it mandatory. I'll just show you some slides about, this came from the WHO. This is the policy brief of the WHO on mandatory vaccination, the ethical considerations, and it mentions it should be noted that the WHO does not presently support the direction of mandates for COVID-19 vaccination, having argued that it is better to work on information campaigns and making vaccines available. Again, from the same policy brief, there should be a clear and ethical criteria to make vaccines mandatory, and there should be a strong risk to benefit ratio with practical considerations on vaccine costs, distribution, and frequency. It must be a very safe and effective vaccine for you to even consider mandatory vaccination. So an issue of accountability is also mentioned in this particular policy brief, and as written, even when the vaccine is considered sufficiently safe, mandatory vaccination should be implemented with no fault compensation schemes to address any vaccine-related harm that might occur. This is important as it would be unfair to require people who experience vaccine-related harm to seek legal remedy from harm resulting from a mandatory intervention. Noting, of course, that there is a clause in this vaccine that you cannot sue the pharma company, but it would look like it would be recommended that some kind of protection be given to those who get vaccine injury against those who coerce against them. So the risk of COVID-19 is still dangerous. Is still dangerous among Filipino employees. Well, it was always less dangerous to the young and the working class, and more lethal to the elderly with the comorbidities. Vaccines have already been fully given to at least 30% of Filipinos. This is based on the data of the IATF. I think they will agree to this data. Also, time has allowed for natural immunity for at least 3 million Filipinos, possibly more. In the US, 142 million may already have COVID-19. And this is based on the US CDC data. That's practically half of their population. So they would have a very high chance of getting herd immunity. And presently, we are now more knowledgeable in preventing and treating COVID-19. This is just from today, from the Inquirer. The Philippines now has substantial population immunity versus COVID-19. And this is according to Okta. I think they are very much sought after by the IATF. So why do they have to make it mandatory if among them people are saying there's substantial immunity already from COVID-19? Are COVID-19 vaccines effective? Okay, now I'll go through the data. Countries with high vaccination rates still show COVID cases and death, even among the vaccinated. Sometimes we call it the leaky vaccines, And vaccination efficacy wanes in about 6 months, requiring booster. So it's short term, and again, they are broken promises by the big pharma. Certainly, no old vaccines work with future variants. Now, you cannot say that with certainty that the old vaccines that we are still receiving now will work for future variants. This is some data and a quick look. This is the data from Israel. In the recent months, remember that Israel is one of the most highly vaccinated country. They started vaccinating in February. Practically all of them were vaccinated by April. And look at the total deaths. It's not going down. It's still going up. Again, coronavirus cases in Israel still going up. We would have expected a plateau. So that is something that vaccination often promises. So this is also this one is in Gibraltar. I heard that they have 118% vaccinated, but look at their data. Total corona cases still going up despite the full vaccination. Although deaths have plateaued, there was a period when it did go up. It's still going up. So are COVID-19 vaccines safe enough? How does its safety compare to the overall risk of getting COVID-19 among Filipinos? Now, this is an important concept. When you say a vaccine is safe enough, they always say that very, very small amount lang naman ang namamatay, a few hundreds over the millions that you save. But then again, you must look at the risk involved. For example, I'll show you some numbers. What do the vaccines reports show about safety and adverse events and deaths? Always with a caveat, and we are just looking always at the tip of the iceberg. And I'll sample some of those reports that you can actually get from the internet, although with some difficulty. Now, this is the adverse events from VG Access. This has been going on. VG Access has been going on online for more than a few years now. So this is not something made for COVID-19, and this is actually tied up with the WHO. So it's a fairly good record of adverse events from COVID vaccines. So this is how you do it. You type COVID-19 vaccines and you search, and they found 2,678,485 records of adverse events reported from vaccinations of COVID-19, and there are 13,655 reported deaths from COVID-19 vaccines. Now, there's also a caveat here. They do mention that these are reports, that these are not yet definite. They have not defined completely that it is from the vaccines that has caused the death. It could be just correlated or associated. Now, this is from our FDA. There have been 1,538 fatal events, reported events from COVID here in the Philippines. Here are, this is CDCPH online form. We are not even a big group. We already received 665 responses of adverse reactions. We are not even known nationwide, and yet we have received this many respondents. We also saw a particular site where they often reported the many deaths online. Here are a few of the samples. If you want to visit them, they are on Telegram, COVID-19 Vaccine Victims Philippines. This is the address. And there were over 1,000 reported adverse events and deaths with photos. Now, the reason it's on Telegram because, as many of you know, Facebook would ban you if you put these kinds of reports. So they had to shift to Telegram. It's a sad state because for transparency, this is the only way we can know how safe a vaccine is. No? Again, this is the numbers just for comparison. This is the number of deaths, 1,538 as of November, out of the 81,296 vaccines. So it's a little low. It looks low, no? Or 0.19 deaths for every 1,000 vaccines given. But remember, these people that they have vaccinated are not sick. What is the risk of them getting COVID-19? No? And I will do some comparison later. No? This is the total adverse events, 3,995 out of the millions of vaccinated people. So it's, again, low, 0.49 adverse events for every 1,000 vaccines given. Now, what number do you compare it to? Actually, hindi pa pwede po yung tinatawag nating infection fatality rate. So you have to find out the crude infection fatality risk. So that is computed based on the number of COVID deaths, which is already, as of today, 49,500 COVID deaths in the Philippines with a population of 120 million. That's over the last 19 months. So usually they would do it on an annual basis. But anyway, what I did was over the last 19 months, because this is a crude calculation. So this is the risk of dying from COVID-19. So a vaccine should be far, far less than this if it's going to be somewhat effective. Remember that this could be underreported. And it's 1,538 over 81 million vaccinations. So it's around 0.000189. No? So that is the comparison. Hindi malayo actually, kasi this is, I think, underreported. And remember nga, these are people who are not even sick. And they had died of COVID-19. I mean, when I said not even sick of COVID. So how many lives were saved by vaccination alone? There's no large-scale randomized controlled trials to determine this. You cannot compare non-randomized cohorts of vaccinated virus versus non-vaccinated. Kasi po, ang ginagawa nila, nagpapakita sila ng data na ito, na-vaccinate, konting-konti lang sa kanila na-admit sa ospital o hindi namamatay. Samantalang yung mga nababaccinate, ayan, na-admit na hospital. But that is not a good way to do a study. Kasi po may bias. Pinipili po kasi ng mga vaccinated, yung mga nagpapavaccinate, yung malalakas, at yung malamang hindi mamamatay, o yung mga nakakalakad, makakapunta pa sa mga vaccination center. So may bias po yun. So it cannot be used. No? Usually it takes more than 1 year, but often stop if there are significant differences noted. Kasi unethical, ituloy ang isang study. Kung nakikita mo, namamatay na yung mga hindi nabigyan. Pero dapat yun yung randomized nga. So it should continue on for many years to observe long-term outcomes of vaccination. So do we have the data for long-term outcomes of vaccination? No. So we cannot mandate it. How many lives lost due to vaccination? What number is considered too high? Do they even know? Kasi they should know this. If they have to have a clear threshold or criteria when they need to vaccinate. Kasi if the virus is not that dangerous and you want to coerce it upon people, but you have a low safety of your vaccine, that is unethical. So in summary, this is what we would like to say, that that it is not recommended by the WHO nor the DOLE or the Department of Justice. Not enough for long enough studies on safety with COVID-19. No clearly defined threshold criteria for of acceptable risk to benefit ratio to force vaccination versus optional vaccination only. There's still that option. We are not saying you should not vaccinate. Now, ethical and legal implications arise that if coerced and adverse events occur, including that deaths occur, syempre, who will pay for that because it was coerced? Can the patient not have the right, or the employee not have the right to litigate because he was coerced upon to do it? And finally, there are available preventive and treatment options to decrease the risk from COVID-19 that do not entail coercion. And there are so many that we have been mentioning for many months now. That's it. Salamat po sa House of Representatives, at special thanks to Congressman and Chairman and Eric Pineda po from Concerned Doctors and Citizens of the Philippines.
Thank you, Dr. Higgy Biani, for the very informative, point by point discussions you made regarding the effectiveness of the vaccine. May we now proceed to Mr. Elmer Labog, the National Chair of the KNU. Mr. Labog, you have the floor.
Uh, Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the representatives of the House of the Committee on Labor and Employment, and other representatives from various organizations. I highly appreciate the science-based presentation that has been shown us by Dr. Iggy Agbayani, and I support the conclusions that were herein presented by him, and I think it's worthy to take note on the very important data and conclusions that have been presented to this hearing. We join the House of Representatives, as well as the representatives of various organizations, in expressing our indignation on the non-appearance of the people in high positions of the IATF, and we express our firm support on the position taken by various quarters on the December 1st hearing with regard to the uh, uh, abolition, if not being to hold the implementation of 148 resolution, IATF resolution 148B and 149 to be held in abeyance. So I'd like to take this opportunity to report that there are several quarters of the workforce in various parts of our country who have submitted their complaints, wherein they are allowed to access passage into their workplaces because of not being vaccinated. In the first place, it is not their fault that a lot of workers are not still being vaccinated, as data would show that um, high percentage of vaccinated workers are those that are located in Metro Manila. But if we study data that would come from the regions, there are just a few of those regions who have been successfully implementing vaccination over 50% of their workers or their constituents. Also, it is in this cases that we'd like to express that the implementation of IATF resolution 148B and 149 should be stopped, or if not held in abeyance. And I would also like to express my support that the those impacted workers, especially workers in the Batan Export Processing Zone in Maribeles, who are now with us in this hearing, be heard in their experiences of not being admitted in their workplaces. So I hope too that the workers would given their part, and the IATF should listen to them as they're being forced to be vaccinated against their will. I think it's our constitutional right and it's our human rights not to avail of vaccination if there are valid reasons to not to avail of it. And also, how come that these big pharmas are not being held accountable when people fall victims to the implementation of their the vaccination programs, and yet if workers are being victimized or fall victims to these vaccines, they're not being compensated. I think it would be just and reasonable that these big pharmas should be held accountable, as well as government if uh, the vaccination programs being implemented now would fall would bring the workers in a uh, very tight situation. So we reiterate our position that mandatory vaccination should not be imposed on us workers, and that various quarters of the workforce should be listened to. We express our strong support again, and we reiterate a position that science-based uh, practices should be taken into consideration. And I'd like to express in behalf of my organization our strong support on the presentation given today by Dr. Iggy Agbayan. Thank you very much to everybody.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Elmer Labug of the KMU. We will now proceed with Dr. Shane Lindo of Gabriela, who will discuss briefly the loophole on the no tax, no work policy. Dr. Lindo, are you on board? Dr. Lindo. Comsec, on board ba si Dr. Lindo?
Sir, yan na. Sir, unfortunately, she's no longer on board. Ano dyan? Oh, she's still on board, sir.
But she is
Ah,
not
sabi kasi na.
replying. But anyway, to expedite this meeting, let's proceed now with the next person in line. I would like to call on Dr. Alan Landrito of the CDC Philippines, who would also like to make a short presentation. Dr. Landrito, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I would like to share my slides.
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm sharing my slides. So the title I selected is What's Good with the COVID-19 Vaccines. First of all, I'm Dr. Alan Danrito, Medical Officer at City Health Department of Muntinlupa, also member of the CDCPH, Doctors for Life and Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance. Before I do this, I would like to put a touch on spiritual and social, more humane aspect of the matter. No? So I would like to quote Ecclesiastes 9:12 from the second most wise person who ever walked the earth. He said, "For a man does not know his time, just as fish are caught in an evil net, and birds are caught in a trap, so the sons of men are ensnared in a time of disaster when it suddenly overtakes them." So we know very well that this disaster has really overtaken us for now, nearly for just 4 days from now, 21 months. And in the Philippines, we are number 19. We rank number 19. We have 2.8 million cases, and we have 49,500, nearly 500 deaths. And so I would like to open up. Let's revisit just for a short the 4 pillars in pandemic response. We are on the 4th already. That we have first the contagion control, early home treatment, late stage or hospitalization, then vaccination. Contagion, we did AATF has to be commend. We have done a very good work on that, as well as the DOH, face masking, all that, no, implementation of all these things. Early home treatment and hospitalization, we had our share of casualties of fatality 49,500. That's too much. We could have done better in early home treatment hospitalization. In my experience, we have, if I may just cite what I have experienced, I am about to publish in an international journal my study on 1,273 subjects. On prophylaxis, we have 95% success on that. And then just recently, November 25, we had a Philippine COVID Summit held here on November 25. And I was tasked to give the keynote address, and I was saying there that that was a very important event because we had, for our guest speakers, the best people who have done the best things for the pandemic. And we have Dr. Peter McCullough there. We also have Dr. Percory, Dr. Ryan Cole from the CDC page, as well as our very own Dr. Marivic Villa, and Dr. Sabine Steinberg also, and Dr. Rafael Castillo, who discuss about natural immunity against vaccine-derived immunity. And I got the privilege to discuss with Dr. Marivic Villa. She was telling, in the U.S., she's handling the biggest nursing homes in Florida and in the whole states, handling thousands of patients. And she was too proud to say that she has never a single case of hospitalization. So we have done very good strides in handling patients before even brought to the hospitals. And we know if we can go back from March last year, then I suppose, with the wisdom that we have already gathered, we will have stopped and the pandemic in the whole world as early as September last year. It could have gone only for 6 months. That's how far we are convinced that we know about therapeutics and preventives. And so, what is the essence of these 4 pillars of the pandemic response? It is to conduct every response with the least collateral damage. And now let's talk on the 4th pillar, which is vaccination, the aim of which is herd immunity. This is very familiar with the Congress, no, with the August body, because this emanated from you, the Republic Act number 11525, to establish the COVID-19 vaccine program in expediting vaccine procurement, administration, and providing the funds thereof. And why? Section 2, letter C states it recognizes the experimental nature of the COVID-19 vaccines. So the Congress and the legislature fully knows well that this vaccine is experimental and that efforts are to be goaded on compensating any serious adverse effects, also SAEs, they call, arising from the use of COVID-19. And what are these SAEs? It's they have to provide remunerations for those who were hospitalized, those who had permanent disability, and those who even died, and they know it fully well. And so this Republic Act was approved in February 26, 2021. Now, when we talk about vaccine, it always occurs to us because we are familiar with the dengue vaccine tragedy that took place in the Philippines. Launched in April 2016 in Metro Manila, Calabarzon, and Central Luzon, about 700,000 plus children 10 to 12 years of age were vaccinated. And months thereafter, starting September onwards, even 2 or 3 years after, these children are having hemorrhagic syndrome. They're bleeding. My first my first grandson also had bleeding episodes, continuous epistaxis, bleeding from the nose, and I have to give him 50,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and I'm able to manage him. But sadly, many children never had that benefit. They died, about 600 plus of them. Now the question is, have we learned our lesson from this tragedy, which took here in the Philippines? It took place in the Philippines. Now, are we going to be dreaming the best of the preventives and therapeutics already? And are we going to commit a recklessness and imprudence on this aspect? Or are we going to exercise wisdom? Now, if we look into the updates of the Philippine COVID-19 vaccination program, while our total population is 111 million plus, the vaccinated, I did the mathematics, is about 47.82% already. The fully vaccinated is about 34.37%, and those given the third shot is 0.46, computed against the whole population. So we are achieving very high numbers already. But we lack data. How many of them got breakthrough infection? When you say breakthrough infection, they were vaccinated and yet they still got COVID. We need data on that. How many among them got the severe adverse effects, who were hospitalized, permanently disabled, and who died? We don't know the figures. Although Dr. Agbayani was showing that the fatality was already 1,500. Okay. Now let me show you what is these serious adverse effects. I have data from the US VAERS. VAERS means Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System of the US. Anaphylaxis, this is the extreme allergy. No, they have this content in the vaccine called polyethylene glycol, which has potential to create anaphylaxis. People can die from anaphylaxis. That's 2.5 per million. Not a big number. Thrombosis with thrombocytopenic syndrome. So thrombosis, that's where the blood is clotting so much that it clogs on the heart, on the brain, on the vital organs. Thrombocytopenic is when the opposite. The platelets going so low, people are starting to bleed. So this is about 3.29 per million. And Guillain-Barré syndrome is also a deadly adverse effect. The muscles become so weak because the neurons are permanently damaged. That's 16.34 in the US per million. And myocarditis and pericarditis, people are having this problem. The heart's weakened. It's big number, 22.6, but still a small number compared to its rate per million. Now, when we discuss about this, I have figures from the US. Before 2020, there were only 158 total deaths every year among all the vaccines. But then when they started using the COVID-19 vaccines, from January 1 to 22 alone, the US already experienced 182 deaths. That's just 22 days. And as of November 29, from December 14 to 2020, from December 14, 2020 to November 29, there were reported 10,128 deaths. Now, let's look into how do we analyze these numbers. We have here, as of November 29, the total number of deaths in the US is 800,000 plus from COVID. These are the fatality from COVID. But then those who died from the vaccines is 10,128. Let's compare the number then. That's 78 against 1. So what does it mean? Are we going to pursue with the great gamble? Susugal ba tayo? Kasi kung babakunahan natin ng mga tao, isa lang ang mamamatay. Granting na 100% effective yung vaccine. Pero kung hindi natin babakunahan, 78 ang mamamatay. So it seems likely that the best option is really to vaccinate, and it's really a good vaccine, right? Okay, let's see. Let's look further. But are we going to pursue and continue with this great gamble of vaccinating people? If we consider these 4 important points, when there is not a single safety report from any government in the world, anywhere in the world, not a single safety report. When the contents of the vaccines are not being disclosed. I can remember during our COVID summit, Dr. Peter McCullough was saying, they asked the people from the manufacturers, and they will only disclose all the other contents after 55 years. My God, who is alive by that time, di ba? And the third point is, when we already have achieved the most efficient preventive and treatment protocols at hand, we have it already. We can, if we can turn back the time, there would be fatality that much. It will be just maybe even less than 1% of what fatality we had. And are we still going to pursue this and continue this great gamble when the pandemic is soon to be over? The curve is dipping because it's already just 4 days away to be 21 months. And, it is said to be the longest will be 24 months. A pandemic only comes from 18 to 24 months, and natural or herd immunity will be achieved. Now, we have to look into other aspects. And these are the late sequela. We haven't seen this. No? It is yet to be seen months from now or years from now. These things will happen. This is enhancement due pathogenic priming, also called immune mitigated enhancement. Number two, antibody-dependent immune enhancement. It may be that number one or number two took place among the Dengvaxia casualties. No? Could be na those children, actually they have discovered, no, they investigated on 600 children who died from Dengvaxia, they had previous exposure to dengue pathogens. And so the vaccine, Dengvaxia vaccine, tend to enhance the pathogens as it mitigate immunity. And with antibody-dependent immune enhancement, this can come with mRNA, with vector vaccine and the protein vaccines that are in COVID-19. Number three, there can be autoimmunity. We have showed you, or I mentioned already, immune Guillain-Barré syndrome, and many others. Even thrombocythemia is an autoimmune disorder. There can arise a lot of different other kinds of autoimmune disorders we are yet to see. And placentosynthesis trophobacterial, young women who are vaccinated may end up, their placenta, their uterus will not be conducive for placental implantation, and they will all be continually miscarrying, getting miscarriage from their pregnancy. And then that is this what we are afraid of: mutagenesis, carcinogenesis, and teratogenesis. Mutagenesis, the vaccine, since these are genomic material, can mutate our very own human genome, are the chromosomes, our chromosomes. And it may pose carcinogenicity, especially with the other undisclosed contents. And teratogenicity means you are inducing cancers on the offspring, not necessarily on the one who received it, but on their future offspring. These are all possible, and scientists are telling about this. So are we still going to gamble knowing that these potential dangers are there? Now, we will go back to the very important thing. This investigational agent and the RA 11525 is even acknowledged is an experimental vaccine. It is an experimental mental intervention without even an informed consent. We are not educating people what will be the effect because we don't know the effect. So how can we inform them? So mandatory imposition of this procedure will practically violate fundamental principles laid down in Nuremberg Code of 1947 and the Helsinki Declaration of 1964. What is this? The Helsinki Declaration of 1964 was a response from the Nuremberg Code of 1947 due to atrocities of Nazi doctors who were doing experiments on patients. So thus the Helsinki Declaration was instituted, now with 7 revisions, but the very essence is it's upholding the fundamental principle of respect for the individual, their right for self-determination, his right to make informed decisions. The subject's welfare must always take precedence over interests of science and society. The ethical consideration must always take precedence over laws and regulations, and that the increased vulnerability of individuals and groups must be recognized. And that just recently, I'm just 2 or 3 slides away. Streaming live in South Africa is last November 28th is none other than President Cyril Ramaphosa. When he gave this address to the nation, you must remember South Africa's population is half of the population of the Philippines, but their cases and their deaths are 4 times that of the Philippines. They had the Beta variant, they had the Omicron variant. And what does he have to say? He said, nobody will be forced to take this vaccine. Nobody will be forbidden from traveling to wherever they want to travel, from enrolling at school, from taking part in any public activity if they have not been vaccinated. Nobody will be given this vaccine against their will. Nowhere will the vaccine be administered in secret or in some dark corners. So we appreciate very much his insight, his dedication to his office, and his love for his constituents. So what are the questions? What are in question with this COVID-19 vaccine? Is durability. Durability means, is it durable? Can it really stand the test of time? We know already that it only lasts for 6 months. Then you have to boost again, and then after 6 months, again another boost. It's leakiness. Leakiness means this is observed in animal models. In medicine, a lot of the things we know about therapeutics starts from animal model research. In animal models, we have seen, these chickens that we are taking, we are every day eating from McDonald's or from Jollibee. These are in poultry. All of these chickens are vaccinated, and they have done an experiment. If these are all vaccinated, the notion is they don't have viruses, right? But then they did an experiment. They add unvaccinated chicken. What happens in 10 to 14 days? The unvaccinated chicken dies from viruses. So this leakiness, no? And we believe COVID-19 is leaking. We know a lot of we are observing phenomena like that. And the efficacy of the variants, we know that whatever we have right now will not be efficacious in other variants to come, in Omicron or other variants to come. And the safety, we have discussed that already. I just gave some details on that. So what are the wrong notions that we are hearing now and everywhere? That a vaccinated person will not catch the virus from the vaccinated, but will catch it from the unvaccinated. This is not true. The unvaccinated, if they are transmitting virus, before we used to have incubation period of 7 to 14 days. Now we're only having incubation of 2 to 4 days, even 3 to 5 days, or even 2 to 4 days. And so if the unvaccinated will be infecting the vaccinated, you will expect them to have COVID-19 the next 2 to 3 days. But this is not taking place. Number 2, a vaccinated person will not shed the virus. Now, I was discussing about the leaky virus. That is explained. That one explains this concept. No? And number 3, and the vaccinated person sheds the virus. This is also not true, no, as explained already. And then an unvaccinated person is in a dangerous risk of getting COVID-19. Now, we know from the start of this pandemic, the experts have said that 80% of the population will be asymptomatic. So if they are asymptomatic, they won't get COVID. I mean, they have caught the COVID, they didn't manifest symptoms, and they already had natural immunity. And that's what's taking place. That's where we're reaching herd immunity. And what are we advocating? Stop unnecessary discrimination against the unvaccinated. Stop coercion in the workplace, in schools, public places, etc. Stop mandatory vaccination and implement the best yet the cheapest of preventives and therapeutics. And lastly, let me quote again Ecclesiastes, from Ecclesiastes. It's now from 9:17-18. It says that better to heed the calm words of the wise than the shouts of the one ruling among fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but just one sinner can destroy much good. Good afternoon to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Landrito, for the very good presentation. Tama po kayo. Sa akin pong pananaw, marami ho dyan vaccinated but they don't realize that they're already COVID positive. Sa akin, mas nakakatakot yun kasi ang feeling ng vaccinated na walang nararamdaman, okay siya. But I heard some talagang mga nangyari na these people were vaccinated and they were tested for RT-PCR and they were shown to be positive pero wala akong nararamdaman. So mas nakakatakot po sa akin yung ganun na naglalakad siya kung saan vaccinated siya, pinapasok siya sa mga restaurant kung saan hindi siya na-require ng mga testing basta lang vaccination card, yung pala carrier na. Yung po nakakatakot doon. We now proceed the Reverend Father de la Cruz of the Solidarity with the Workers Network. So, Father de la Cruz, are you on board? Father de la Cruz, board.
Mr. Chairman, kami po'y taga-APAP. Wala pa man po yung IAT na yan. Pinatupad na po nila sa amin yung...
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
No vaccine, no work.
Comsec.
Sir, we would like to call on Reverend Father de la Cruz of Solidarity with Workers Network.
Hello po.
Yes.
Good afternoon po, Sir Chairman. Kami po ay isang manggagawa dito sa Freeport Bataan.
Mr. Chair.
Isa po kami sa mga biktima na no vaccine, no work po, sir. Hindi po kami pumapasok.
Facebook group na to, can you please mute them?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative Gaite.
Opo, actually sila po yung gusto po namin talagang ma-invite sa sa pagpupulong na ito dahil sila po tumutulong po si Father dito sa kanila. Sila po yung members ng Solidarity Workers Network at gusto nga sana namin ma-invite sila dahil nga po Mr. Chair sila na yung affected ng policies earlier pa hindi na nga sila daw pinapapasok, pina-force leave na sila kung di ako nagkakamali. Kaya sana po pahintulutan sila makapagsalita dahil tulad ng ating pagpupulong na nakaraan, yung mga manggagawang apektado ang dapat marinig.
Reverend Father Del Musa magsasalita in behalf of the...
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, Mr. Chair. So yung mismo manggagawa na po ang magsasalita.
Sino po ba yung magsasalita? Please identify yourself. Unless it might remain anonymous.
Mukhang ganun nga po Mr. Chair dahil ayaw nilang baka may retaliatory action laban sa kanila and they requested anonymity. Thank you Mr. Chair.
Okay, whoever that person is, you may proceed.
Yes, sir. Anonymous name po, sir.
Okay na, Mr. Chair. Hindi na kailangan magpapangalan. Salamat, Mr. Chair.
Isa po kami sa biktima ng IATF Resolution 148-B na mula po nung December 1, hindi na po kami pinapasok. At dahil wala daw po kaming vaccine, no work, no pay. Ayun po. Pero po bago po ito pinatupad yung no vaccine, no work, sir, by August po, sinabi na no vaccine, no work, ay 50% lang daw po ang pwedeng makapasok dito sa Bataan area report po. At ayun po, tuloy na ang iba po ay pinursleeve na po dahil nga sa no vaccine, no work. Tapos noong October po, ganun din po ang ginawa sa amin. 50% lang daw po ang pwedeng pumasok dahil daw po nga no vaccine po kami, kaya no work din po kami. Tapos nung lumabas po yung IATF resolution, nag-mandatory po nag-post po yung APAB Bataan na sabi niya na daw po sir, from December 1 kung no vaccine no work, kailangan daw po mag-RT-PCR test sa halagang hindi naman po namin kakayanin sir yung halaga na yun na 5,000 sir. Gaano lang po ba yung sahod dito sa Bataan? 420 lang po a day. Paano na po yung iuwi namin sa pamilya? Yung RT-PCR test na sinasabi nila, every 2 weeks po, nasa sarili namin gastos. Saan po namin kukunin yun? Yung sa araw-araw po na pangangailangan namin, sir. Hindi po namin kakayanin yung ganong ipinapatupad ng IATF Resolution 148B, sir. Kaya po, nananawagan po kami sa inyo po, sir, na mapakinggan po yung nangyayari sa amin. Hindi lang po, higit ko lang 1,000 po dito sa Bataan. Nawala ng trabaho dahil so IATF Resolution 148B, sir. Dito po sa Bataan, ang dami po nilang ipinapa-implement mula po noong nangyari po yung mga COVID na yan, sir. Sa gate pa lang po, kailangan mag-PCR at pag wala kang PCR, sir, magmumulta po ng 300 pesos.
Ano ba yan?
Ano na po ang ginagawa nila sa amin, sir? Napakahirap po talaga. Hindi po namin ang pamilya namin paano po mabubuhay. Diyan lang po kami nangunguha ng aming kakainin sa araw-araw. lang po, sir. Nailabas ko na po ang aking sama ng loob, sir.
Maraming salamat po. At kami po ay nakikiramay po sa inyo lahat. Kaya nga po hihiring po tayo dito dahil karamihan po sa aking mga kasama po dito sa Kongreso ay hindi po sumasang-ayon dito sa polisiya na no vaccine, no work. Kaya makakaasa po kayo na we will do everything in our official capacity na ma-repeal itong pinapatupad nilang resolution. And gaya nga sabi ni Mr. Labog, eventually we should also abolish it. Kaya nga itong nangyayari po dito na hindi po tayo binibigyan po ng importansya ng mga namumuno po ng IATF na parang iniisdam po tayo pero hindi po na naiintindihan kung ano po talaga ang hinaing at problema ng ating mga manggagawa. Kaya maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo at nasabi niyo po kung ano yung mga nararamdaman ninyo, yung concerns po ng mga kasamahan niyo po dyan. Pipilitin po natin na maiayos po natin kagad to. In the meantime po, ipararating ko sa mga congressman niyo po dyan sa lugar ng Bataan itong nangyayari po ngayon sa inyo. Kaya kung ano pong may tutulong po nila, papakiusapan po natin kayo ni Congressman Joel at si Congresswoman Roman na sana po matulungan po kayo. We now proceed to the next source person, Mr. Robert.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chairman Mendoza.
Yes, fully support kami sa Solidarity with Workers Network in Bataan, Mr. Chair. Meron kami ding mga members dyan. Mr. Chair, I believe that this is just a manifestation. I believe that one of the members of the IATF, although they snub us, Mr. Chair, is actually DOLE, Department of Labor and Employment. And Yusek Belio is always, I think, present in those meetings as certified by Yusek Charade. Yusek Belio, Secretary Belio may not be here, but there is such thing as a National Productivity Tripartite Industrial Council, Mr. Chair. What it does is actually a tripartite. There's labor, there's employers, no? Kami, actually, we're members in many of those tripartite councils. You have labor, you have employers, you have government. It's high time, urgently, to call that that tripartite council. Kailangan talaga to call it. Nandito naman si Yusek Benjo in the room. Paano natin na dapat urgent meeting in order to tackle this issue? That's one way of doing it, Mr. Chair. Again, Committee of Labor and Employment, it's not snub tayo, Mr. Chair. Actually, we had to use coercive action just to get that chairman in that committee sa HCOA. This is nothing new. It's always like this. At that time, Mr. Chair, we were trying to get the ranking na dapat ang manggagawa hindi lang sa B5, dapat sa A1 or A4 then A1. Yung sa OFW, remember that, Mr. Chair, yung sa vaccination priority. It took us 2 meetings just to call the Secretary Duque. And he did. But tingnan mo, ang dami ma-resolve. Automatic na A1 yung OFW, Mr. Chair. So in this case also, urgent call for the National Tripartite that Council should also convene. If you, coming from you, Mr. Chair, it's also mas malakas kung galing sa'yo, Chair. Thank you. And you can call on Yusek Benjo. I think Yusek Benjo is here. If ever, humbly request, Mr. Chair.
Yusek Benjo, are you on board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm on board and monitoring.
Some light regarding the discussions held sa IATF. Kasama po ba kayo dun sa mga discussion na yun?
No, Mr. Chair. We have another representative to the discussion and the TWG of the interagency task force. But Mr. Chair, going back to the manifestation of Honorable Raymond Mendoza, yes, we have the National Tripartite Industrial Peace Council. We are ready to convene. But I think, Mr. Chair, that is not the most, with due respect, the most immediate action to be taken, considering that the committee has already written the interagency task force. So direkta na pong sinulatan yung interagency task force. What we're just waiting is for the response of the task force regarding the letter from the committee. A while ago, Mr. Chair, I also monitored the manifestation coming from the workers from the province of Bataan. I actually met this group last Friday, and hindi rin po sila nagpakilala, but I requested them to give me at least the company, and binigay po nila yung company. We are now validating that.
Mr. Chair, anong hindi timely? Yung sekwento, timely dapat na patawag mo yung Tripartite Council. You're sleeping on your rights. While we're waiting for the response of that letter, 7 days na walang response. Di ba bastos ang tawag dyan? And then how about you? Dapat let's discuss. You call our partners, the stakeholders. Kami, we're ready anytime. Gusto mo tomorrow or this afternoon? Kaya. So, why not? Diba? So, it's not, don't say timely that I take offense on that one ba. This is a very issue na ang pinai-implement na. Kita mo no, good acknowledge mo yung Bataan. And they're trying. And it is replicated all over the Philippines. Nandiyan ang Mindanao. We got reports na they're using this resolution na hindi makapasok, tatanggalin sa trabaho. So, you sit there and you say hindi timely? It is timely. Unfortunately, yung IATF is not taking action on our letter. So why not also, dyan sa Tripartite Council, let's talk about this. Before Christmas, kung dapat. And let us not wait 7 days. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Point well taken. Yusek.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
As far as we are concerned, it should be Dole that should be protecting the interests of our workers, and Dole po is member of the IATF. That's why I just want to know, ang problema, wala si Secretary Benjon dito, and I know talaga naman very concerned sa mga nangyayari po ngayon, lalo sa ating mga manggagawa. But ang hindi ko lang maintindihan, why the good secretary agreed to such a resolution, which is, first of all, that's anti-labor na po. Parang ayaw natin pagtrabahoan kung walang bakuna. Parang tama sabi ni Vice Chairman Mendoza, pwedeng gamitin yung ibang kumpanya para hindi na papasukin yung mga ibang manggagawa po nila na wala akong bakuna. So sana po, bilang kayo po ang namumuno po sa Dole, yun po ang kailangan makita po ng committee, the Labor Committee, that you are really after, the welfare of these people. Kahit na isang trabador lang yan o 1 million sila, dapat pare-parehaso ang ating pagtingin at pagtulong po. So, if I may ask the good Undersecretary, ano po ba ang pananaw niyo dito sa no-work vaccine na to? What is your opinion po dito?
Well, Mr. Chair, our policy will always be consistent with our labor advisory. And I think the resolution is also consistent with our labor advisory. Yung labor advisory po namin is anchored on the constitutional injunction that every worker has the right to security of tenure. And katulad po nung nakapaloob po sa resolution, we are of the position that no worker who is not yet vaccinated may be dismissed for the lone reason that hindi pa po siya nababakunahan.
Kaya nga po, hindi nga ako nabakunahan, pero ang sabi nga nila, hindi ka namin tatanggalin sa trabaho mo, pero hindi ka pwede pumasok. So wala ka ng sweldo. Pag naubos na yung mga vacation leave mo, that's it. Diba?
Yes, that's true, Mr. Chair. That's why the department is open to revisiting the policy, and as I understand, the letter was already sent to the interagency task force. I'm not quite familiar of how the policies are discussed and made, but I understand that there is a TWG working on that. Napag-uusapan na rin po ata yan. And hopefully in the next coming days, this committee is able to receive the response from interagency task.
Parating mo lang yung Secretary Delio.
Yes, actually, yes, Mr. Chair.
Ito is may mga issues or contentious issues that needs to be resolved para ma-implement na maayos. Ang pinakikiusapan po ng committee and all the stakeholders here is for the IATF to suspend the implementation of Resolution 148-B and 149. That's why we wrote them a letter immediately right after the committee hearing, but to no avail. Meaning to say, sumulot kami, but we never even received any letter from them regarding our request. So sana po naman, sa bagay na to, kayo po ang dole, parating niyo po sa IATF na wag naman po baliwalaan itong ginagawa namin ito. Hindi po kami namumulitiko. Ito po talagang para ho sa mga manggagawa. Dahil kawawa naman po sila kung hindi sila makapagtrabaho dahil wala silang bakuna. And I think that the DOLE should be the one that's spearheading the campaign against this. Dahil ang mandato niya, pangalagaan pong lahat ng manggagawa. Di ba, Yusek Benjo?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, just for the record, alam na po ito ni SEC because last Friday, together with the Secretary, we met this group. So the Secretary has committed to that group regarding the concerns that they raise. But in particular, yung na-mention ng company sa Bataan.
But you said this is not only about this group.
Right.
This is about
Yes,
a lot
yes, Mr. Chair.
all
Yes,
Kaya
Mr.
yung
Chair.
po kailangan namin, we need someone that can champion the concerns of these people. And who else can champion them but the Labor Secretary, who is the member of the IATF? And I think Labor Secretary, siya po dapat, dapat he should be concerned na hindi man lang sumugot yung IATF doon sa sulat na pinadala po ng Committee on Labor.
Yes.
Yan po ang dapat na ating pagtukunan po ng panahon. Kasi sa amin po, masuspindi lang po natin itong resolution muna pending further deliberation. That's more than a victory for us already. Diba? So yun lang naman ang pinakikiusap natin. Wag muna pa-implement, mag-usap muna tayo dahil may mga contentious issue na kailangan ma-resolve. Once it is resolved, then all the more that we should pursue the implementation of the resolution. Pero at this point in time, na marami pong problema pa, wag na natin pa-implement muna. At yan po ang sa parating ninyo kay Secretary Bello na pakiusap po ng Labor Committee and all its members and stakeholders na sana naman po, sana po ang magsalita in behalf of all the workers na hindi ho bakunado, na apektado po nito. Now, ipasuspindi muna. Yun lang ang pakiusap nitong committee na to. Kasi,
convey the message.
Talagang hindi kami binibigyan ng tamang importansya po dito.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will convey the message of the chair and the committee to the secretary, as well as the fact that this committee has already wrote the interagency task force and still awaiting for the response of the task force, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, will it take them 7 days to respond? Napakasimple lang naman sasabihin nila, di ba? Nakikiusap ang Committee on Labor, mga miyembro po ng Kongreso na wag muna natin ipatupad doon. Dahil na-apekto po lahat ng constituents po namin na wala akong bakuna. So ito po ang aming pinapakiusap na sana po, dinggin po kagad kami ng IATF na isuspende muna natin at makipag-usap po sila sa amin, makipag-dialogue po kagad sa aming committee hearing para ma-resolve natin lahat ng mga issues. Maraming mga issues kailangan pag-usapan dito, kaya hindi ho dapat sila nag-decision lang para sa kapakanan ng mga manggagawa.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mendoza.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Yeah, I hope that Yusek Benjo can relate that to the good secretary. I also understand that in the IATF, isa lang sila sa mga sa interagency task force. So they have the coercive, or let us say um, that one ba from the good secretary, the goodwill, considering he is from Dole, to urge them na for immediate, kasi 7 days na, please understand, Yusek Benjo, you've seen them already crying. That's why it's very important for us na something you can also contribute to the IATF na with the Secretary Bello there na telling them, i-defer muna. And of course, answer the committee and also appear here with the right authority. Hindi naman yung tao ipadala dito na to certify that the Secretary has read the letter. Ano ba yan? But again, may I repeat, not being kulit lang, Yusek Benjo, is the immediate yung NTIPC. That, my friend, you have control. Kasi kayo yata ang secretariat so immediately call. We are also members, the UCP has been members for a long time. Why not let us also discuss with our partners sa management, labor, and government, and the rest of the government. So yun lang. In the NTIPC, I think may direct control dyan si Secretary Bello. So IATF is just one of the boys. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chair. But resolution is not one of the NTIPC but of another task force. So mas yung direkta na po ang mas gusto po namin gawin. This was already conveyed to the secretary earlier on last week. Thank you po. And Mr. Chair, I will immediately convey to the secretary the directive from this committee regarding the matter.
Hindi, pakiusap lang namin na Yusek Secretary na tulungan naman po ang committee.
Yes.
Maganda naman po ang ating relasyon at we are always very supportive of Secretary Bello and the full Dole family. Pagdating sa mga budget deliberation, lagi po nangunguna po ang ating committee para matagdagan po ang budget ninyo. Sana naman po, itong panawagan po ng ating mga nagagawa na naapektahan po nitong resolution na to, mabigyan po natin kaagad ng solusyon. So, kung pwede lang po sana, and if the good secretary can request the IATF to suspend first, di ba? Para at least mapag-usapan po, at kung maganda po mapag-usapan natin, we can come up with a better solution that is acceptable to all. Yun lang naman po
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, we will comply, Mr. Chair.
Benjo to remind the secretary to immediately convene the NTIPC. Yun lang, Mr. Chair. You can actually issue labor advisories, etc. What's important that vaccination, which is mandatory, is not in legal foundation. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Bahala ka na. Alam mo naman, marami dito sa mga kasamahan natin na talagang nakikiusap sa inyo. Kaya kung ano pong magawa ng Dole para ma-resolve natin kagad to, it will be most appreciated. Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tama po yung pindig ng ating kagalang-galang Vice Chair, no? Kasi nga, ang isa nakita nga natin dito, yung kakulangan ng wastong konsultasyon, partisipasyon ng mga apektado mga stakeholders sa usaping ito. At through the tripartite industrial peace councils, sana mekanismo nga yun. Pero unfortunately, hindi nga sila narinig. Nevertheless, may tanong rin po ko, Mr. Chair, sa kinatawa ng IATF. Nandiyan po ba po siya? Si Yusek Sharade?
Good afternoon. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Salamat po. May tanong po ko, Mr. Chair. Required ba na yung resolutions ng IATF be published with the National Administrative Register before they can take effect? This is based This is based on the Administrative Code of 1987.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we published this, Mr. Chair.
Na-publish po ito sa yung ONAR.
We confirm, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so because I obtained information na hindi pa raw filed with them. So please check your information. Baka ang sinasabi nyo, pinublish sa Official Gazette or other publications. Una yon. Ikalawa, doon sa ang pagkaintindi ko, Mr. Chair, I think magsasalita si Chairman Bong Lapog. I think they had an opportunity to directly dialogue with the good secretary of the Department of Labor. Siguro siya rin maganda rin makapag-share din maya-maya. Pero ang pagkaintindi ko, si Dr. Jean Lindo, yung tinawag ko kanina, ay nandito na ulit, naka-online na ata siya. At kung pwede rin po mapatawag rin sila para makapag-share ng kanilang contribution dito sa discussion. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Gaite. Now, for the information of everyone, this meeting is being streamed live on Facebook, and as of this hour, we have already more than 4,000 comments, and most of the comments are negative against the implementation of the resolution. At marami po dyan sa ating mga kababayan ay nagagalit na po sa IATF. Kaya sana po, kung meron man taga-IATF dyan, makinig po kayo mabuti at ano po ang dapat yung gawin, mag-attend po kayo ng mga committee hearing po namin. Hindi nyo pwedeng baliwalaan ng mga tao. Kaya yung sinabi sa inyo, 4,000 comments na po yan at lahat po sila ay hindi po natutuwa sa nangyayari po. We now proceed with Mr. Elmer Labog again of the KMU. Mr. Labog, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairperson Pineda. I'd just like to raise some of the important part of the minutes that we had with the Department of Labor in our previous dialogue. So according to the DOL, they cannot junk the IATF resolution because it was a collective decision and only the IATF can repeal it. So I think they hadn't given us a categorical answer on and position on the IATF resolution despite the direct effects on workers, as the same group of workers had testified about the adverse impact of the imposition of this IATF resolutions. So we expect no less than a strong position from the Department of Labor, especially it is the prime department that represents the interests of workers and employers. And so we expect no less that the Secretary of Labor himself would really take a position to suspend, if not hold in abeyance, the implementation of these resolutions. We heard about the grievances of workers from the BEPS in Mariveles, and I hope this should be a wake-up call for the Department of Labor to take strong action and to really take side with the workers in this issue. The suspension of workers' rights to be able to go to the work sites does not only affect the worker directly, but it forbids the members of the family to have access to food and other basic daily necessities in their lives. So also, according to the DOLE, they can only mediate workers and employers dispute on the implementation of the IATF resolution on the plant level only. So I think it should be a comprehensive approach, and in as much as the DOL is a member of the IATF, I think it is in a strong position to take an action that would really benefit workers and bring them back to work. So also, Dole had been contemplating on proposing a free testing for workers, particularly those who are not or cannot be vaccinated. Yes. So this has been expressed by Secretary Bello, and we believe that this suggestion had been favored by him. So I think one of the reasons why this could not be immediately implemented is about the budget allocation for pre-testing of workers, particularly those who are not yet vaccinated. So this would be another challenge for the Department of Labor, as stated by Yusek Benjo himself. So also, the DOL promised to launch a massive information drive on the regional and provincial level, adding the indemnity fund and vaccine leave in the discussion to assure workers that those who will receive adverse effects from vaccination will be taken care for. So I'd like to reiterate my previous position that why would be big pharma's exempted from being accountable, and yet when workers are affected and the vaccinations would have an adverse effect on them, why wouldn't the responsibility shouldered by these pharmaceutical companies as well as the government? And so I think the government should compensate and also with these big pharma's workers who would avail of such vaccination and in the end would have an adverse effect on them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we now proceed with Dr. Jean Lindo. Caroline, are you on board?
Good afternoon, sir, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, all. I am Dr. Jean Lindo. I'm Vice Chair of Gabriela Women's Party. So I'm going to make a critique of our COVID response from ethical and justice principles viewpoint. Our COVID response has not been inclusive. No? We excluded communities from the response. We have not really made efforts to evoke positive responses from the communities. They are not included in decision-making process. And so this is a problem. And now this mandatory vaccination is really problematic. Have we really done mandatory education in COVID response? This doesn't have adverse effect. Mandatory information drive, that's acceptable to us. I mean, I teach community medicine, and the researches of my students on vaccine hesitancy stem from concerns about effectivity, adverse reactions, especially life-threatening adverse reactions. And also, they wanted reassurances naman that such adverse reactions are promptly and properly managed. So I have my own experience after the vaccination I had the first time. So I had fever, high blood pressure, and headache. So I tried how I texted the hotline, and the response was just noted. Noted po, ganun lang. So walang advice and all that. So kulang din po talaga. So hindi po masisi. There's another a mother from General Santos. Her son died. 22-year-old son died 5 days after the vaccination. So hindi na-adjust po ito properly, and she's so frustrated until now, grieving. So I'm really helping her out para ma-mainstream ang kanyang problem doon po sa DOH. And so we have not really equipped the communities properly with practical technologies such as hygiene spaces, provision of alcohol or sodium hypochlorite, improving the water supply, especially for communities na congested masyado. So these technologies do not have adverse reactions. So I think we have not really maximized other strategies. And then, of course, there are ways to continue to work now for those who refuse vaccination. They can be redeployed to low-risk areas. At saka hindi naman po lahat ng mga workplaces are high-risk areas. And it's not also true na hindi na po kapag nabakunahan na, hindi na magkakasakit because I am a perfect example of a fully vaccinated individual who also had COVID infection like last September, and I had to stay in quarantine for 3 weeks kasi ang tagal-tagal po na negative yung aking test po. So I think hindi kailangang restrictive lahat yung mga methodologies natin para mag-succeed po tayo sa ating COVID response. Thank you very much po for hearing me out.
Thank you. We are now pressed for time, so all the next resource person will just limit you to 2 minutes. Let's speak with Mr. Robert Maronillo of ECO. Morning, Maronillo, you're on board.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good afternoon. Good afternoon, other members of the committee. Yeah, first and foremost, as mentioned in the last hearing, ECO would like to emphasize that the rule of law should always be followed. Now, Mr. Chairman, the debate on the no vaccine, no work policy has been talked about since the Delta variant has been discovered in the country. We know that the Delta variant is more transmissible and it's more deadly. And in fact, it can also infect kids, no? So to date, it has been proven by data that the vast majority of hospitalization and death caused by COVID-19 are in unvaccinated individuals. We know that fully vaccinated people with Delta variant infections can also spread the virus to others. But still, according to the CDC data, fully vaccinated people spread the virus for less time than unvaccinated people. Now, Mr. Chairman, relating this to the no vaccine, no work policy, coming from the perspective of the employers, business owners have the right to protect their workplace from COVID-19. In fact, protecting one's workplace is also protecting the business, the health of its employees, and everyone's families. Mr. Chairman, I'm saying this because according to our occupational safety and health standards law, the employer has the obligation and duty to keep his workplace safe and healthy. And if a worker is found to be infected by COVID-19 or other disease inside the workplace, it is the employer who shall be liable to shoulder all the expenses that will be incurred due to such illnesses. And alam po natin, mahal po ang pag-hospitalize ng mga COVID-19 victims. Now, in closing, Mr. Chairman, we believe that this policy is not against the law, considering that the state is merely exercising its police power with the intention of promoting the welfare and well-being of not just the workers, but business owners and their respective family members as well. So yun lang po ang perspective ng employer side, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Attorney Marnilla, for purposes of discussion,
yeah.
Kung let's say, papasukin mo lang lahat yung bakunado, di ba? Na hindi mo sila subject sa PCR o antigen testing, di ba?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Paano kung meron isa doon sa bakunado, yung pala infected na siya pero wala kang symptom? O di patay din yung mga iba dyan, mahahawal din sila o sakaling mahawal sila.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with that. However, being vaccinated gives you more protection po than being unvaccinated, and that is clear po. So,
if you want to protect the work environment, then you should not be biased only towards unvaccinated. It is proven na marami talagang vaccinated dyan na nagka-COVID. At marami akong kilala na nabakunahan na namatay din. That's what I'm saying, na if you really want your workplace to be safe, then all the more that you should test people that are vaccinated already because they can also be carriers. At marami ho dyan na napatunayan na po, and I for one can attest to that, na maraming bakunado na, double dose, after 2 months, yung level ng antibodies sila is already below minimum and they are already susceptible to being infected again. So yun ang sinasabi po natin. If we really want to be strict about it, dapat lahat po ng mga binakunahan ninyo, which I do in my own office, and I'm expending for it, pinatesting ko po lahat ng empleyado every 2 weeks for their antibodies. Pag nakita ko po yung antibodies sila, mababa na, ginagawa ko ng paraan para ma-booster kagad po sila. Ganun po pinangalagaan ng aking mga empleyado. Hindi ko sila pinababayaan na, oy, bakunado ka na, okay ka na. That's not the way, Mr. Marunina. Believe me, maraming namatay, nagkasakit, na bakunado na, because hindi ho naging effective yung vaccine. Or the vaccine was not enough to protect them from catching the COVID. Yun lang po ang sinasabi natin. Yeah. This is why we need to dialogue with the people from IATF because we are now basing everything on first-hand experience. Diba? Hindi to haka-haka, totoo to eh. Oh, yung mga kaibigan ng kaya ng kaibigan ng Deputy Speaker Mikey Romero, bata pa, bakunado na. Ang bakuna pa dyan, maganda. Tinamaan din ng COVID, patay din. Diba? And ilang taon na yun, wala pang 50 years old. So yun ang sinasabi natin dito. Na not because you have the vaccine, na you are the only one that has the right to work. Diba? Ngayon, if you're espousing yung a safer working place, yun ang ipatupad ninyo. Lahat ng bakunado, pacheck nyo rin. Diba? Gaya ng ginagawa ko. Then you are assured that everyone in your workplace, malinis po sila, hindi po sila makakahawa. Yun lang po, Mr. Attorney Marunilla. We now proceed with yes, Attorney Marunilla.
Just very, very quick. Mr. Chairman, tama po yan. Actually, kung lahat po ng empleyado pwede pong i-test bago po pumasok, that would be a very, very good. It's very ideal. In fact, lahat po ng mga malalaking companies they do that. Yun lang po. Ang problema po dito sa country natin is that testing is very expensive and it's
it's expensive, you know, if you know how to do it. Like I said, we have antigen testing that are certified by the FDA to be 97% effective in determining if you are COVID positive or not, which is about halos pareho ng PCR because I think PCR is about 98-99%, which they consider the gold standard. But if you ask the World Health Organization, they don't even consider the gold standard anymore. But what I'm saying is this, you know, the problem lies in the fact that a lot of people that got vaccinated, nagkumpiyansa na. They feel confident that they will not catch the virus. But so I always ask them, have you had yourself tested for antibodies? And 90% would say no. Yun po ang malaking pagkakamali po natin. Dahil pagka nagpa-testing sila, magugulat na lang sila na wala na pala silang antibodies. Especially those that took the Sinovac vaccine, I'm guaranteeing you, wala pang 2 buwan, wala na. Because after 2 months, yung isang tao ko, tinesting po namin, yung kanyang antibodies below minimum na po. Awa ng Diyos, after 1 week, nagka-COVID na po. So, yun lang natin pinag-usap. Hindi tayo nagdidiskusyon na you want a safer environment, so be it. But kailangan gawin mo yung dapat tamang gawin. Huwag kayong magkumpiyansa. We now proceed with Ms. Patricia Santos of CBBRC. Ms. Santos, are you on board?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes po. Can you hear me po?
Yes, you may proceed, Ms. Ana.
Yes po. Ma'am, nabanggit naman na po kanina yung mga nais po naming i-raise. Yun nga po, nais po naming mag-engage pa yung DOLE at pumosisyon po in behalf of the workers. Pwede po silang maglabas actually ng mga advisories para po ipaalala na hindi pa rin naman mandatory ang vaccination sa mga workers. Dahil sa ngayon po, kanya-kanya ang interpretation ng mga LGUs at ng mga employers doon po sa IATF Resol 148-B. Kaya po, marami po yung mga employers yung nagpapatupad nito sa kanilang mga pagawaan. Tapos tama naman po no, na hindi lang po vaccine ang pamamaraan para maging sure tayo na safe ang ating mga manggagawa. At yun nga po, ang panawagan po namin ay magkaroon pa sana ng programa yung ating government sa mass testing kasi po napakahirap nga pong magpa-test sa ngayon at hindi po afford ng mga manggagawa at kahit po yung mga employers, hindi po lahat na employers kayang sagutin yung pagpapatest ng kanilang mga manggagawa, lalo na po yung mga small business owners. Kaya yun po, sumasalubong po kami doon sa stand at effort po nitong committee na ito at nagpapasalamat po kami kay Chair Eric Pineda para po doon sa pagdinig sa hinaing ng mga manggagawa at doon po sa aming panawagan, ipabasura na po itong IATF Resol 148-B. Yun po, maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Felicio Santos. We now proceed with Ms. Counts Deliente of TEUHR. Ms. Deliente.
Ayan, magandang hapon po, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Nagpapasalamat po kami sa natutuwa po kami no dito sa ating komite na talaga pong pumapanig po no doon sa side ng mga manggagawa. No. Gusto lang din po namin mag-manifest regarding
Pahinaya ka mo.
DOLE, no? Kasama rin po kami doon sa Sec Benjo and Secretary Bello po. Better po?
Yeah, better.
Yan, sige po. Yan, yung binabanggit ko po, kasama rin po kami nung nakaraan sa dialogue with Secretary Bello and Sec Benjo. At sa totoo lang po, no, medyo disappointing po din talaga yung naging resulta ng dialogue kasi bagamat may mga ilan pong ipinangako at syempre po nagpapasalamat po kami na laging bukas yung Department of Labor and Employment sa pakikipagdialogo ng mabilis hinggil sa mga iba't ibang issue nire-raise namin. Pero sa bahaging ito po, no, medyo disappointing po kasi wala po kaming nakuhang categorical answer sa DOLE kung titindigan po ba nila yung Labor Advisory number 3. At sa totoo lang po ay disagree po no sa sinabi po ni Yusek Benjo na aligned yung IATF Resolution 148-B doon sa Labor Advisory number 3 na nilabas nila. Hindi po ito aligned kasi sabi po mismo doon sa Labor Advisory dapat po hindi implement ang no vaccine, no work. Samantalang sa IATF resolution, napakabigat po ng mga kondisyong nilalatag para makapasok yung mga hindi bakunado. So doon po may conflict na po agad doon at ang inaasahan po natin sa Department of Labor, tindigan po sana nila yung advisory na nilabas nila kasi nilabas po nila yon in the midst of napakaraming mga ulat na nag-i-implement na nga po yung iba't ibang mga kumpanya. So yung ibang mga manggagawa na hindi pa po sigurado or hindi pa po kumbinsido na dapat magpabakuna, pinanghawakan po nila yung advisory na yun. Kaya talagang nag-create po talaga ng kalituhan itong IATF resolution na ito. Isa pa po, no, gusto ko rin din po i-raise sa IATF. Ano po bang nangyayari? Bakit ang mga inilalabas at pinapatupad ng mga pulisiya ay tila parang shortcut po ng mga measures, no. Sana po, yun nga po kanina na-raise naman na po, no, hindi po ito dumaan sa consultation with different stakeholders. Kasi at the same time po, no, hindi po dumaan sa maayos na assessment kung naisagawa na po ba lahat ng mga measures na kailangan para mapalaganap po, no, yung vaccine education, no, at yun po, no, isinusulong pa din po natin na mas mahalaga po, no, at isa pong crucial step yung accessible and na mass testing po, no. I-request din po natin yan sa DOLE nung nakaraan. Pero pansamantalang lang po yun pansamantalang lunas lang po na enforce pa po itong IATF resolution. Pero yung pang long term po sana, no, matagal na rin po from the very start nung pandemic po natin, yun po yung panawagan natin, dapat po mag-provide ang gobyerno ng accessible na mass testing para sa lahat, para naiiwasan po yung ganitong paglalagay ng mga discriminatory na mga polisiya. So muli po, manifest po namin yung panawagan pa rin po namin na i-junk itong IATF Resolution 148-B at papasukin na po agad, no, yung mga manggagawa na apektado po ng resolution na ito. Salamat po.
Thank you, Ms. Dalihente. Yusek Benjo, are you still on board? Yusek Benjo? On board mo ba, Comsec, si Yusek? Wala na.
Sir,
Anyway.
may we call on ASEC Cocueco if she's around? Wala na.
Nandito po ako, sir.
ASEC?
Yes po. I think si Yusek Benjo kasi meron din po siyang I think he's but he's still on board. He's just giving a short message po. But I'm also trying to reach you.
I want to just inform you regarding your labor advisory number 3 of 2021, which is the title is Guidelines on the Administration of COVID-19 Vaccines in the Workplace, di ba? Workplaces. Yung section 3 ninyo, nakalagay doon, no discrimination or termination. And it's very clear, the last sentence says, no vaccine, no work policy shall not be allowed. So, maliwanag po yun na pinirmahan po ni Secretary Bello noong March 12, 2021. Ano po ba masusunod? Itong advisory ninyo o yung IATF?
Sir, when we were discussing this po with the officials of the DOLE, wala naman hong nakitang pagsasalungat po kasi na inaalaw pa rin po ang work. Yun nga lang, may karagdagang requirement po. But sabi nga ni Yusek Benjo, we are also looking at all of the comments that are coming in. And he already said that this is for review. But when it did come out po, we all hindi naman ho tinanggal na or sinabing walang work na mangyayari. May karagdagang requirement lang po.
Technically you are correct, di ba? Pero ang tanong natin doon, makatarungan ba yung nire-require ng IATF na bago ka magtrabaho, kailangan RT-PCR test ka, nasasagutin mo. Kayo nga namamahala ng mga manggagawa, alam niyo naman kung magkano sweldo niyan. Tapos, papayagan nyo na magbayad sila ng ganun kalaki, matalas sila pinagtrabaho, di ba?
Yes po.
Kailangan sinasabi ko, Asek, na you have to be consistent. Because you are the one that is managing the affairs of the labor sector. Dapat kayo po ang unang-una na nagdidepensa po sa kanila. Pinuproteksyonan po yung mga manggagawa. Pero ganito, papayagan ninyo po, parang hindi ho tama, hindi ho ba?
Noted, Mr. Chair, it's in the process of review po. We're reviewing this po.
Oo, kasi yun lang inaano ko doon. Hindi balik ko na siya. Nakipag-away talaga doon si Secretary Bello sa IAT. Papalakpakan pa namin siya. Diba? Na hindi niya pinayagan to. And if he speaks against it, all the more the better. Because that means that he is really concerned about the welfare of our workers. Hindi po yung ganito na maglalabas tayo ng labor advisory, no vaccine, no work policy should not be allowed. At sinasabi niya, oo, wala naman ho talaga. But technically, di ba, yun ang pinag-usapan. Pero makatarungan ba? Yun ang ating susunod tanong doon. So yun lang po gusto kong iparating sa inyo. At sana iparating niyo po kay Secretary Bello na ito po ang aming hininaing. Na let us be fair, you know.
Yes, sir.
Pinapakit with the last resource person, Mr. Louis Corral of the UCP. Louis Corral, are you on board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We associate ourselves again with the views of the chairman. I'd just like to remind our colleagues in the DOL that they have a budget for vaccination. It's built into your NERS, National Employment Recovery Strategy Program. If you can vaccinate, you can provide free testing. I think it is something already that the Undersecretary and the Assistant Secretary can communicate to Secretary Bello that there are available funds in the DOL budget under the NERS program for vaccination. So why not convert that already for free testing and immediately issue a labor advisory to bring about that situation? That labor advisory could be issued as early as Thursday. And all that it would have, Your Honors, is language that would help facilitate access to free testing for workers who either choose not to vaccinate, not to be vaccinated, or who have no access to vaccination centers or the vaccine. And that could, for the meantime, address the problems of workers such as those in Bataan. Daily wage earners are taking a huge hit, and their families, working families, ordinary families, are already being placed in a kapit sa patalim situation. So that is something that the DOLE can immediately do. There is a budget. The second point, Your Honors, is it is about time for IATF to review its protocol and not just focus on vaccination, but rather a twofold strategy: free and easily accessible vaccination, and free and easily accessible mass testing. The mantra of government has always been test, trace, and treat. It's about time that it live up to its mantra rather than leave it to the tender mercies of LGUs or companies who are implementing the IATF resolution as to their own interpretations. Finally, Your Honor, with respect to the invocation by ECOP of police powers, yes, police powers is for public health and public safety, but it should be tempered with humanity and an understanding of human rights and the public good. So we hope that those 3 points will be taken into consideration by the DOLE and the members of the Honorable Committee on Labor and Employment. And of course, we hope that this is communicated ASAP to the IATF, which has remained absent. Its bigwigs continue to dishonor and disrespect Filipino workers, and it is about time that we call them to account. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Louis Corral. He's half of our resource person to speak. As I mentioned earlier, we will defer this committee hearing, and as we speak, we are already crafting the letter, as probably worded letter to the IATF, regarding the disappointment of this committee and its members for snubbing this committee hearing. And we shall schedule, if it's still possible, another committee hearing next week. And hopefully, by this time, itong mga big time na mga taga-IATF, pagbigyan naman tayo na mag-attend po sila. Unless otherwise they are not concerned about the comments of now it's about 5,400 comments na po tayo sa Facebook. And I would say that 100% are negative against them. Diba? Kung ayaw po nilang pansinin yun, bahala na po sila sa buhay nila. But like I said, we will write them another letter, a strongly worded letter this time, to compel them to attend the next committee hearing, if we can schedule it sometime next week. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn,
Congressman Gaite.
yes, we support the urgency of the matter is most pressing. Ramdam na ramdam mo nung nagsalita yung mga kasamahan natin ng mga manggagawa sa Bataan. And I hope that our colleagues in the IATF, the Department of Labor, the Department of Health, recognize that urgency. Sana po sa susunod na hearing ay tiyakin na makarating yung responsible key persons. Kung maaari si IATF Chair and DOH Secretary Duque, and also as raised already by our good Vice Chairperson Congressman Mendoza, kumari rin, makaupo rin ang ating kinatawan ng mga manggagawa who supposedly should champion the interests of the workers, si Secretary Silvestre Bello III. So sana po makadalo sila. At short of, no, kung hindi pa rin kasi sila makadalo, ngayon pa lamang, I will already move that they cannot attend the next hearing. I will move for the subpoena to mandate them to attend in the next hearing. Kung kailangan during the Christmas break, mag-meeting tayo dahil tinatamaan na yung ating mga manggagawa. They cannot afford to wait. Yung attitude ngayon na parang pabanjing-banjing lang, no? While workers are losing their jobs, their salaries, and other benefits. So yun po, Mr. Chair, sana po makarating sila susunod at di lang makarating, aksyonan yung ating panawagan. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with that, kalimutan ko. And with that, I move to adjourn the meeting, Mr. Chair.
There is a motion to adjourn. No objection. The chair hears not, the meeting is hereby adjourned. Maraming salamat po sa lahat na nag-attend. Maraming salamat po sa aking mga kasama sa Kongreso at ating mga stakeholders na laging tinatangkilik ko ang ating committee hearing. And hopefully, by the next committee hearing, we will be seeing the faces that we want to see from the IATF. But in the meantime, ang panawagan po natin, and we will reiterate in our letter that they suspend the implementation immediately until further notice. This meeting is hereby adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Yan pa si Vice Chair Mendoza. Nandiyan pa. Kamute. Sige po, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng dumalo. Thank you, Comsec.